Hello, developers, and welcome to the PHP Architect Community Corner, where we have conversations with members of the web development community. I'm your host, Scott Keck-Warren, and today we're talking with Chris Lemon about his talk at PHP Tech 2026 about Nginx. Chris Lemon is a team lead and Laravel developer at Vehicle. He also organizes GPUG, a PHP user group for PHP developers in southwestern Ontario. Thank you, Chris, for finding some time to talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Yes, absolutely. So the reason that we pulled you on today is that you're going to be one of the speakers at PHP Tech 2026, and specifically you're going to be talking about Nginx. And can you kind of give people who don't know what it is, just like a brief overview of what Nginx is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nginx is a really cool and powerful web server. Typically, since we're talking PHP, it's often the middleman between a user making a request and that request ending up in your PHP application, but it has other uses as well. Like you could work as a load balancer or a reverse proxy. So it's kind of a multi-tooled instrument that you have at your disposal. It's also, from what I understand, the largest market share of web servers. It has about 33% market share. So it's definitely like the most used web server on, serving web pages and applications on the web today.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because like when I started out with like web development and it wasn't called DevOps then, but when I was doing DevOps, it was just like Apache was your only choice. Like it was just like you had Apache and you used Apache, and like now there's like all sorts of different options. And Nginx is really just kind of like skyrocketed from nothing to overtaking Apache, which I didn't ever think would actually happen. It's really kind of a fascinating change for everything.
Interestingly enough, like from what I understand, Nginx was actually written to be a direct competitor for Apache because they felt that the performance of Apache wasn't strong enough. So that the creators behind Nginx took a challenge to see if they could outperform Apache, and obviously they did.
Yeah, and I think like the part that I kind of find interesting about Nginx is like it does separate like pieces, because like normally like in an Apache request, like PHP is running kind of inside Apache, but then like Nginx like directs the data over to a different process entirely in order for that to work. So I guess like what is it that like drew you to using Nginx for your projects?
I mean, it's really kind of, I think if you're a PHP developer, in my opinion, the default option. I guess from my experience, I built a little app that I want to deploy on a Raspberry Pi, and I had never really deployed an app before. This is when I first started out, and I just said, okay, how do I go beyond like Laravel's PHP Artisan Serve to actually make this work on a Raspberry Pi? And the answer was Nginx. It came natively, I think, on the Raspberry Pi install, and just set that up. And that was kind of eye-opening to me to kind of understand, okay, this is how, I go from making a request and it gets transferred through Nginx, and there's some parsing done, and then, it populates some environment variables, and then we pass that into, headers and cookies and whatnot, and then pass that into PHP or into Laravel. So to me, that I just thought that was really interesting, and definitely something I hadn't seen before. And I think for a lot of PHP developers, especially now that we live in the world of like one-click deploys and environment setups and things like that. We have Laravel Forge and Cloud, and I think DigitalOcean has their own like one-click service. So um, you know, how often do we actually look at Nginx these days beyond just I set up my application and that's the end of it, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I guess to segue into why this talk is just I find this so interesting, and I want there's so many options that you have when you use Nginx, and I think that more developers should understand what's happening between their users making requests and ending up in their application, and then what they can do in that middle part when in Nginx to kind of process those requests and you know add extra things to them or redirect them or what have you. There's so many things you can do with Nginx that I imagine a lot of PHP developers aren't aware of.
Yeah, and I think like to me, it's always fascinating like what you can do. Because like so I should say like the talk that you're giving is called Nginx and You, and you do go through like some examples of like stuff that you're gonna go over, and like the one that I really always find interesting are caching and rate limiting. And so like so the thing that I kind of understand, and I'm not an expert at Nginx, so I'm coming at this as a less than knowledgeable person. Is it like we can use Nginx kind of as like a reverse proxy, kind of like what Cloudflare does, where like we have a cached version of the site and it just like really quickly can spit that out? Is that a correct assumption to how that works? Or
That's definitely one of the things you can do. I mean, there's a lot of other options, but yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. One thing I think is really cool is that Nginx can actually serve up cached versions if it encounters like a 500, for example. So this is like
oh,
a really good way to handle like downtime or unexpected errors. Um, so there's this option of you never really have to go down as long as you have a cached version of your page. Um, but that's definitely one use case for moving caching to Nginx.
okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know you could do that with the with like Nginx, so like to do like the cached version of it, because like we've gone through some like I'm gonna say jumps to in order to like do downtimes with like a like a status page that says we're currently down. So it's kind of interesting that you could just be like, okay, well our public pages still are accessible maybe, and then stuff that doesn't need like direct access to write or anything like that. That's really kind of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. Yeah, I think and I think the awesome part too is you can choose what you want to cache based on whatever environment variables or user variables that come into Nginx. So you can really fine tune your caching based on the route or whether the user's logged in or not or any number of things that you have access to with Nginx.
Yep. So for people who go to your session, can we kind of expect to go from like if I know zero about Nginx, then I can like maybe go home and like start doing some work on it, or is this more of like an intermediary like talk where we kind of you're kind of expecting people to know what to do?
So my goal is this is going to be accessible to someone who's never even looked at Nginx before. The goal is the first part of the talk is going to be just examining how Nginx, the configuration files are set up and what they're doing in those configuration files, and then we'll just build on that knowledge until we can really utilize some of the more advanced features in Nginx.
Okay, that's really kind of a good. Like, I think it's going to be very helpful for people to kind of see all that information. We'll be right back with Chris after this word from our partners.
Building PHP applications is your passion. Managing cloud infrastructure shouldn't be your headache. Displace is your partner in cloud infrastructure orchestration, giving solo developers and small teams the tools and automation to deploy enterprise-grade Kubernetes clusters without enterprise-grade complexity or cost. Their CLI tool streamlines everything from local development to fully managed cloud deployments on AWS, Azure, GCP, and more. Skip the steep learning curve of Docker, Kubernetes, and Terraform. Let our automation free you to focus on your core business without losing control over your infrastructure. Get started at displace.tech and discover how the right tools can eliminate the need for a full DevOps team.
And we're back with Chris Lemon. The other thing I wanted to ask about is so like you did mention that there's like a rate limiting component, and like what does that mean for like a normal person? Like if I needed rate limiting, like when would I use that?
Yeah, so I mean, one obvious example is protection against DDoS attacks. Stopping an influx of traffic that is malicious in nature. And I think if you look at modern PHP frameworks, they have rate limiting built in, but they still have to boot the app to use that rate limiting, right? And so that means you're putting extra strain on your server just to say, no, I don't want to serve this traffic. So in my mind, we should be moving that kind of stuff off of our PHP frameworks and onto our infrastructure, which is much better equipped to handle that kind of stuff.
Right. I always there was this whole discussion about like how security is like Swiss cheese, where there's like all these holes, and so you always just want to have like more and more layers of like things blocking it. And I was because like that's what we do is like we have rate limiting at like an application firewall, and we have rate limiting in the application itself, and then hopefully one of those two catches like all the problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's just like
absolutely.
yeah. So that's really fascinating then, because I didn't realize it even would support something like rate limiting. So that's definitely like a beneficial thing for people. So, is there kind of anything else that we should be chatting about with Nginx so that people are interested in the talk?
Yeah, I think the crux of the talk is separation concerns. And looking at your application as in a holistic sense. I think often as PHP developers we're hyper focused on the code, right?
Mm,
What we've written and how it's being executed. But I really want to like shift the mindset to also have developers think about, well, how are those requests entering my code, and what can I do before it even gets to my code that maybe will either speed up my boot time, process things more in a different way, take some of the strain off of PHP, and really just take a look at that as kind of a one whole unit instead of saying this is the DevOps part and this is the application part, and really just think of them as one whole thing that can work together in some ways that are really, really cool.
Yeah, I always think that's a benefit to everyone. Like, it's like especially web developers, because there's just so many pieces that can break or do weird things like for us, and like having an understanding of how like the whole request lifecycle functions is just so
Mhm.
beneficial when you're trying to figure out a bug.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you'd like to direct our listeners to? I know that like you have a users group, and you also are one of the developers at Vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm a developer at Vehicle. We're a web consultancy company located in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. We primarily do PHP and specifically Laravel, but we also do Node and we do Vue and React and any web technology we're interested in. Give us a look if you're looking for some consultants. We're not to brag, we're pretty good at what we do. Um, yeah, I don't really do social media, but if people want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. You just look for Christopher Lemon Vehicle, and you can find me. And yeah, I also organize a PHP meetup located in Waterloo, Ontario. But we try to service kind of the southwestern Ontario area. So if you're interested, we meet at the end of the last Wednesday of every month, which happens to be tomorrow, actually. So we're doing a meetup tomorrow where I'm going to be talking about some really cool stuff you can do with the Eloquent ORM. Um, but yeah, so that's where people can find me if they're interested. And if you're a PHP developer in Southwestern Ontario, please come out to our meetup. It's a great time, and we have lots of great discussions and great learning and a great community. So
All right. Do you guys stream that by any chance? Because that sounds interesting.
we don't we do when we go online, but we try to do it as much in person as possible. We find that as soon as we start streaming, people stop coming to the in-person stuff, and we're of the opinion, and I'm of the opinion that like in-person community is really important. So we try to keep that as in person as possible.
Yeah, no, I'm with you fully on that. I just like it sounds like it would be fun. I'm not gonna draw, like I'm not gonna make it to Ontario tomorrow, so
No, that's
it'd
okay.
be
No
interesting
problem.
to hear like the talk. So
Yeah.
that's really like helpful. Um, so and I have to say like Vehicle has been nice enough to sponsor tech in the past, and several other community conferences that I've gone to and then spoken at. So I really like appreciate everything that you all do for the community. And I would say like if you're looking for consultants, they're a good option. We started working down a path of actually bringing some of you on, but it didn't quite work out for us. And that was not your fault; it was our fault. So, but I appreciate all of your time today, and I look forward to seeing your talk at the conference.
So well, thanks so much for having me, Scott. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I had to say another heartfelt thank you to Chris for all of his time, and also for you for listening to our podcast. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure you subscribe with whatever your preferred method is so you can get the episodes as soon as they're released, and maybe share this post with your coworkers so they can learn from it as well. This podcast is available both in an audio version on our PHP website as well as a video version on our YouTube channel. This is Kakek Warren for the PHP Architect Community Corner signing off and reminding you keep listening, keep coding, and keep reading.